Welcome to the first lesson of Intro to Protocol in Swift. The goal of this lesson is to master the Swift protocol syntax before you take full advantage of what it offers on the table. Let's begin. Alright guys, welcome to Intro to Protocols. Here's a problem statement. Protocols. Who are you and why do you use them? And why can we simply use object-oriented programming? I thought it does all the job. Okay. Well, I think it's important for us to understand why we use protocol and how to use them. Okay. So I think it's important for us to begin with why do we even care about protocols? It's always good to go back to our previous past, and that's how I like to introduce the lesson, which is just simple object-oriented programming. And once I cover the drawbacks of object-oriented programming, I'm going to walk you through what protocol is, okay? So first of all, object-oriented programming is good, right? It does provide inheritance, kind of like sometimes you don't have to make a lot of, it does provide a lot of code that you don't have to repeat yourself through inheritance. But when you subclass in object-oriented programming, you have to inherit properties and methods which you may not need. Your object becomes unnecessarily bloated. So what does that mean? We talked about it when typecasting. When you work with UI color, UI view, you have to inherit everything comes from, let's go on top here. I think it's typecasting. Okay. You have to inherit, when you're working with UI button, you have to inherit everything from UI view, UI responder, UI application, not UI application, but NS object. So it becomes super bloated. So if there's a saying that if you want to work with banana, but you kind of bring gorilla to it. So it's like you bring entire jungle when you work with small things. So you can also take a look at some of the resources. All evidence points object-oriented programming being bullcrap by someone, and also I talked about subclassing. You're doing it wrong. Take a look at their references if you want to go deeper. Okay, and second, when you make a lot of superclasses, it becomes extremely difficult to navigate between each class and fix, bug, and edit. Here's why. Again, let's go back. Imagine you're working for Apple and right? Imagine you're working for Apple, and sometimes imagine if you make a little change to UI view, not only you're gonna impact the UI table view, image view, every other place you're gonna have an impact with. So it becomes super hard to fix the legacy code when it comes to object-oriented programming because they're all related to each other. Okay, third point. Since objects are referencing the same object in memory, that means there's a one object. If you make a copy and create a small change to its property, it can mess up the rest. I think I talked about it before when it comes to, when you're making a class, making an object, you're not really having a value of it. You're actually having a reference. So when you are making a small change to one property from another instance, then you're gonna the other one also have a problem. We talked about it last time. And also one example could be singleton pattern. For example, singleton pattern is available within the iOS ecosystem. What happens is, let's say you're working with two developers, and one developer changed the singleton pattern property to username to Bobby, but the other one doesn't know. And what happens is, if the other person used the previous value, and not knowing the value has been changed to Bobby, what's going to happen is they're going to have a different result and they have a communication problem. So reference types are actually quite bad sometimes because they share something. And sometimes sharing is not that great when it comes to programming, especially working with different part of people. Okay, so we talked about it, drawbacks of OOP. And then let's talk about protocols. Protocols prevent any of this, okay? Protocol provides non-nested. Protocol provide no inheritance. It's all flat, all value type. So let's talk about what protocol is. To me, protocol is like a basketball coach. People like to use my quote on Twitter. Protocol is like a basketball coach. He tells the player what to do, but he or she doesn't know how to dunk a basketball. Well, let's find out what it means. So first of all, we're going to define protocol. and call it humanable. We tend to use the word nuble, ends with an adjective as a protocol name, okay? Unless it contains two properties, and one is string and one is race, okay? And here you have to use this definition get and set for property, and don't worry about it for now. We're gonna come back to it. But to define that there's a property, you have to use get and set, okay? And then let's say there's a function called say hi. But you've noticed or not, this protocol doesn't really have the value associated. If you think about it, it's like a basketball coach, right? There's no name to it. It just tells you, hey, there's a name, there's a race, and there's a method. But it doesn't really have the what they do, so it doesn't know how to dunk a basketball. Okay. But what it tells you is when a struct or an enum or class may convert to humanable, that means those classes must have name, race, and say hi. So for example, when you do struct, let's call it Korean, all right, humanable right there, and it's gonna complain. The Xcode is gonna complain because, hey, you are following this coach, but you're not following his instruction or his or her instruction. Okay, ready right there. Problem right there. Korean does not conform to protocol humanable, so that means we have to provide default value for a name. Raise and say hi. Okay, so we have to do something like this. You just type name, there we go, right there, the value is right there. Let's call it bubbly. Race, I think it tells you string, Asian, I believe, and also say hi. You have to provide hi. I am what? I'm name. Oops, right there. Hi, I'm Bob. Okay, well, not only applies to struct, you can also apply to American right there. All right, if you're American, a lot of students here are Americans. I think about 30% of the students here are Americans. Based on the analytics, name you have Joe Smith. All right, Smith is one of the most common American names, and last name, and also race is white is also one of the common. Say hi, I'm John Smith. Okay. Okay, not only can you confirm to class and struct can confirm to humanable protocol. So hopefully you understand what it means to have protocol. Okay. In this lesson, I'm not going to go too deeply into the practical application of protocol. In this lesson, you'll learn how to use protocol and what it is, and application will come along as we move along in the later lessons. Okay. But protocol also provide inheritance. So what I mean by that is, let's create a protocol as called super humanable. Just name it that way, and then you have humanable right there. But you want to also have some other properties such as bool, get and set. Again, I'm going to come back to it for get and set later, and punch or whatever you want to fly. So now if you have struct called Bob the developer that confirms to super humanable, what happens is not only you have to confirm to humanable properties and methods, you have to also confirm to can fly. For example, you have to use all, name, race, say hi, and can fly a punch. Because the super humanable inherits all the required methods and properties from humanable. Okay? So this is what I mean by protocol inheritance. Well, this is good because you don't have to do something like, you don't have to repeat yourself. For example, if you're not using protocol inheritance, if you have Bob, you have to do humanable plus you have super humanable both. You may do that, but why not simply inherit it, and then you have just one protocol you have to conform, and there we go. Okay? That's what protocol inheritance is. So now let's go back to, as I talked about, the difference between get, set, and get. You may use, when it comes to here, you may use get or get set when it comes to property. Well, this words should not come across too foreign, because we talked about it, computer property back then, right? Well, when it comes to get and set, you may it only applies to computer property. So if you're using just if you're using default property, we call this, what was it called? Store property. It doesn't matter whether you put a get or set. Doesn't matter whether it's get or get set. Okay, there are two choices. You can make it only gettable. You can make it settable. But when it comes to computer property, it doesn't matter because computer properties by default is always gettable and settable. Okay, so it doesn't really matter what you decide to do. So I think I just use get set. I just use get. It doesn't matter. Get set doesn't really matter. But when it comes to computer property, all right, you may change this can fly as a computer property. You may use it as a store property. You may use it as a computer property, right? So how do you do that? So first of all, let's create a breathable protocol, and it contains two properties. One is breathable, a get set, and the one is living. So let's create a struct that confirms to breathable. Create a struct that confirms to breathable. You know which example I'm gonna use. Human, right? I'm not sure why I cannot copy and paste. I'm just gonna copy this. Let's call it breathable. So in this case, you have to use two properties. You may just simply use is breathing and living as store property, but if sometimes you want to use it as a computer property, right? So is breathing. Let's begin with the first one. Use computer property get, return true. But since this is short, I'm just gonna use it in a single sentence, single line, if you say it, and nothing with get instead. All right, just for the sake of example, to show you the example, the differences. All right, should work, all good. Okay, but now let's do is living. Boom, it's gonna be like get. So get right there, return true, and then set. Okay. Is everything good? Let's find out. To see if everything is good, say hello right there on the bottom. There we go. So everything is good. So what's happening here? So what is difference? You made this is breathing as get and gettable and settable. You also made is living as gettable, and but you also made it settable. I thought if you only get, you can only make it gettable. Well, in Swift, it's quite funny. I don't know why is that the case, but when you're using get only, you may use the store property. That's fine, right? It doesn't really matter for store property. For computer property, it can be gettable as well as settable. So if you're using get, all right, only, you can make things gettable and settable. Okay, doesn't really matter. But when it comes to get set, however, store property doesn't really matter. Again, we talked about it. For computer property, you have to make gettable as well as settable. Well, if you're making settable, it's gettable. So you have to make it settable as well. For example, if is breathing is right now get and set, if you ignore this set right here, it's gonna complain, hey, you gotta have the settable method right there. Okay? Then it kinda, okay, I'm good. But when it comes to get, it doesn't matter if you use gettable, it doesn't matter if you make it settable, they don't care. Okay? So use get set if you want to make sure things are settable, or if not, you can just use get. I'm not really sure why this is the case, right? A lot of people get confused by this syntax. I don't really know why. If you know why, please tell me, comment below, ask me questions, and I'll be more than happy to listen to what you have to say. I did my research, I read the entire the documentation, the reference book many times so far, but I just couldn't find the reason why we do this way. Okay? So far, we didn't really talk about the practical application of protocol, and you might wonder, how can protocol solve these problems? Okay, well, hopefully, the more we go to the next lesson, when you cover one lesson, just a couple 15 minutes of this intro about protocols, well, I swear you will learn a lot more about protocols if you follow my lead, and you'll become a protocol or in programming as we move along. All right, chapter 5, chapter 6. You'll be amazed how you're gonna code stuff. So without having to write something like this kind of code, which prevents other people from interacting with you. You don't want to be that person. You want to be that person who can invite everyone else to join your code and to start coding together. Okay, and the protocol will serve that purpose. Okay, so see you guys in the next lesson. And if you want to learn more, just take a look at the references and see why object-oriented programming may not be the best case. All right, there's no black and white. There's a benefit that comes along with object-oriented programming, but also there are drawbacks as well. See you guys in the next lesson. Review the syntax of protocol, and bye-bye. Boom, let's recap a little bit. For store property, it does not really matter whether you set the requirement as gettable or set. For store property, however, if you set the requirement as get set, you have to make it gettable as well as settable. If it's just get, you can use both. Either you can make it settable or you can only make it gettable. Protocol is like a basketball coach. It tells his players, such as classes, enums, and structs, to do something about this, but they can provide their own implementation for the instructions. The next lesson, you will learn how to create clean and scalable architecture by applying protocol extension. Well, let's find more about it in the next lesson.